Hello and welcome to this guide on turret operations for the Tequatl Sunless, the Guild Wars 2 World Boss. Now, the turrets are very important in this fight because they debuff Tequatl, buff the Zerg, and they clean allies. So let's get into how to use these turrets effectively. First off, you don't want to stand behind the turret while you're using it because the range actually depends on your position for the turret. So here I am standing behind it, and I've got this little island targeted, as you can see. So we're going to go ahead and bring up the turret, fire the number 3 skill at the island, and you can see I can just barely hit the nearest closest edge with the round. Now if I get off the turret, move myself to the front, like I am now, I can actually hit the far side of the island. So just to give you an idea of how much range that gives, I'll go ahead and run over here on foot, show you the size of the island, and you can see I was barely able to hit here where I'm standing behind the turret, but once I move forward I was able to hit the far side. So stand in front, not behind. As far as the skills themselves go, skill 1 and 2 are used on Tequatl. Skill 3 is a poison cleanse, which you use on the Zerg and on other turrets. And skill 4 and 5 are buffs that you will use on the Zerg itself. You'll basically want to use 1, 2, 4, and 5 as soon as they're off cooldown every time. Now, 1 and 2 you're going to direct towards Tequatl's head. Number 2 knocks off the armored scale. Number 1 just does DPS. 4 and 5, buffing the Zerg, are also pretty important, and you want to hold on to skill number 3 until either you see a turret get hit with poison or the commander calls for it. Over time, Tequatl generates armored scales during the fight, and the way to prevent this is to hit him with that number 2 skill. It will knock off 1 armored scale per hit. If he hits 20 stacks, he will summon a bone wall. During this bone wall phase, Tequatl is invulnerable, so you have to destroy the wall so that you can then do DPS. So make sure you use that number 2 skill. He won't even get the wall summoned, and you can continue doing damage to Tequatl throughout the fight. Now, I generally don't like to throw other players under the bus, but here these 3 guys are on these 3 turrets, and they did nothing to cleanse the center turret, and then the far right turret actually gets hit with poison, and once again, they did nothing to help out. Now, the turret got destroyed, the player was killed, and all they had to do was cleanse it, and he would have been good to go. Now, at the same time, the player on that far right turret could have also gotten off of the turret, gotten out of the AoE circle, and healed himself, which didn't happen. So, here as you can see, turret gets hit, there's the poison, nobody cleanses, player goes down, right there, turret gets destroyed, right here, and then other players have to come over and res that player as well as repair the turret. Now here's kudos to the player on the left turret. Not only does he wind up getting hit with poison and he cleanses himself by shooting the ground, he also fires around at the finger and destroys the finger and then continues to fight. So this is how you keep your turret active and functioning. So once again, 1, 2, 4, and 5 as soon as they're off cooldown. Skill number 3 as soon as you see some poison. So this is just an example of what you would do on a turret, okay? So there's a anti-scale hit to his head, buff on the Zerg, another buff on the Zerg, anti-poison to the Zerg, there's a hit for the scales, there's a DPS hit, and then the finger next to me, DPS hit, is going to be on that. Another DPS hit, anti-poison, DPS, and there's a buff hit for the Zerg, another buff on the Zerg, anti-poison for the Zerg, anti-scales back on Tequatl again, anti-poison on the turret next to me, anti-scale hit for Tequatl, DPS hit, anti-scale hit, buff on the Zerg, another buff on the Zerg, knocking the scales off Tequatl. So it's just an idea of what you'd be doing on the turret. You're not going to sit still. You're not just going to sit there and push one button. You're going to try and rotate through all of them. Here's another finger next to me. DPS it down again. I'm not in the poison, so I'm not hitting number 3 on it. Now, as far as your gear goes, anything that gives you toughness and vitality would be perfect. Also, mango pies, since it gives you health regeneration, as well as your vitality. Well, that's pretty much it. Everything you need to know about turrets for the Tequatl World Boss event. I'm Kieran, and I'm with the Ethereal Guardians.